exactly. Anyway.
Welcome to our Bucky call on this June 4th and June 5th. Welcome to the call. And Julian, you're here today. How are you feeling and what do you expect out of today's call?
Thank you, Stephen. And hi, everyone. So I'm feeling good. I'm really happy to see again some familiar faces here, to know that you're still moving this forward, and I'm expecting to have a slow progress into this, because I've been out for a couple of weeks, a couple of months even, and I know that I have to take it easy to be more again to get back on track with you, and to see if I can provide any insights and make a lot of questions. So I think with that, I would like to go with Manu. Manu, how are you feeling today? What do you expect for today?
I feel quite well, Julian, and I'm really grateful that there are renewed faces into this call, and that's going to be injecting a lot of energy into the flow. But welcome back. The rafter is on. It's been flowing. It's been on the river. So join on board. I mean, the train is on. What I expect is basically further understanding general principles and applying them locally to improve, the living in as much as possible for the largest number of people in that locale. That's what I expect. Otherwise, I also expect a lot of exchanges, enrichment, and coming out of this having grown in a way that I can measure. So Susan, how do you feel? What do you expect?
I feel super happy to see Kelly and Raffers and Julian, especially since it's been a few weeks. And I'm sorry I was out with the family celebration last Saturday. It means so much to have people that challenge me to think and challenge me to connect the dots and help me to do that. I'm going to have my pet sitters stopping in. I just have to drop off a payment, so I will bounce for one quick second. I don't mean to be rude, but Joseph, how are you feeling and what would you like to get out of today?
I'm feeling very good. And I too share in your happiness to see Julian, Raffers, and Kelly. It's been fantastic. Welcome. I'm doing really well, and I'm really looking to just build on what we've been discussing over the past few weeks. But in particular, I like how Manu framed what he said with the idea of learning how to apply these general principles locally. I was kind of working, I mentioned this on Wednesday, kind of working on a prioritization framework that could be applied to where I work. And it had a lot of the same principles that we've discussed here on this call, as far as prioritization with automation and what is too small or too large or too frequent and not frequent enough. So anyway, it was interesting. So I'm looking to build on what I'm working, what we've been talking about. Anyway, Raffers, how do you feel and what do you expect to take away from today?
Thank you, Joe. Not really, I feel great. I mean, I spent a couple of weeks with my children, so that was always fantastic. And so that's why I took a bit of a break, but happy to be back and happy again to see you all and to reconnect with Kelly, Susan, Steve, Joseph, Manu, and obviously with everybody actually. And what I expect to get out of today is actually, again, to carry on understanding more about, universe, our role here, what we're supposed to be doing, rather than, fall into everybody's lunacy, or most people's lunacy. And I think it's important that we discuss the mess the world is going through these days. I mean, there's no country free of it, actually. I mean, the UK is going crazy, the US, I mean, well, they have the shootings as well. I mean, which is absolutely crazy. And then we have war in Ukraine. I don't know, these are troubled times. So the more need I think there is to actually reconnect and apply generalized principles, because again, that's not happening yet on a larger scale. Hey, we need to do things locally, because that's how individuals have impact. But again, a few individuals can change the world. So I still believe in that. So happy to be part of the transformation gang, as it were. So first thing on yet, I think is Kelly then. So Kelly, how do you feel, and what do you expect to get out today? Happy to see you as well, by the way, Kelly.
Happy to be here. Yeah, I'm actually feeling better over the last couple weeks. I feel like I've gotten through all the worst of what I've had to get through, and so I'm hoping that the fact that these things that like Bucky, he just keeps repeating himself in different ways. That this call keeps repeating itself in different ways, and I'm hoping I can remember some of it, because that's my problem now, is that my recall is not good. But happy to be here, happy to participate, even if I'm only at 70%. Maybe I'll get to 80 soon. But anyway, happy to be here. Steve, how do you feel, and what do you expect?
I'm excited to be here, and we're at a ending of a section that's been really a really cool challenge for me, and it's had a lot to do with what I've been thinking about. And in other words, one of my favorite topics is me, and so it's really good that and tonight we're going to finish off me, I hope, and we're going to move from there. So I'm really grateful to see the different opinions on here, and I love your communications between these meetings. And if you send me something, I'll be as responsive as possible to it. And you have any suggestions on how to make it go better, I'm happy for that. So that's pretty much where we are. I'm going to give you an overview kind of what we're doing and where we've been. About 2 months ago, we started on cosmic hierarchies of comprehensively embracing generalizations, which is Synergetics 1056.10. And then the next section is 1056.20, where Bucky started out with basic generalizations and came up with, this part is called comprehensively embracing and permeating generalizations of generalizations, which is very interesting. So comprehensively embracing generalizations, that's the first section. And then this section is comprehensively embracing and permeating generalization of generalization. So, and he numbers everything with a GG to the power of n. And those GG numbers are listed down along here, each one of these little symbols. So a while ago, and what's interesting is that all of these red squared things go into this formula at the bottom of 1056.20, which I hope we're going to get to tonight and finish it off tonight. We're going to finish this green section here, and we're going to do this formula section here. Interestingly enough, these generalizations of generalizations are not included in the formula, which is real interesting to me. Why didn't he do that? And what we're going to see is there are a couple of other things that he didn't include in this formula either as we went down. So we could show you over the last, like this, we did, as far as 1056.20, we did this part 1 back in April 23rd. We did this part as part 2 back in April 30th, May 1st. Then we did this as part 3 back in May 7th through 9th. And then we did this as part 4. And my dashboard and stuff is in the way, so I can't really read that date, but there it is, May 14 and 15. And then May 21 and May 22, we talked about this. And last week, we just kind of went crazy and talked about a bunch of stuff. And so this week now, we're beginning from right here. And this is going to be our topic of discussion here. We're going to finish off this list and we're going to go into the formula over here. As we do, I've got a little report I've written on what's included in the formula and what's not included. And, you know, we could talk about why that's the case. And then we could actually talk about a definition of generalization of generalizations, which I found in Synergetics 508, which really puts a cap on what we were doing. And I hope that we will finish this off tonight, no matter what, so that we have a good idea of not only finishing off our generalization of generalizations, but that we will also have a good understanding of what generalizations of generalizations are. Any comments? Oh, by the way, these are all, I've been labeling all of the recordings and I've been putting them in YouTube. And what I'm going to be doing this week is like making sure that in the description of each one of these, the previous and the following recordings are listed in the description below each one. So if you do click on one, if there's a particular, like if you want to go GG's, you know, generalization of generations 25 through 18 or 33 through 26, you can pick a section and then in that description, it'll tell you where the other recordings are. So I spent a little time recording this last little section because I think it's really a powerful idea and it's going to move on to whatever else we have to do as we do it. Any comments or questions on the overview that I just gave everybody? Okay, wonderful. All righty, so here we go. We're continuing with 10 feet 620 cosmic hierarchy of comprehensively embracing and permeating generalizations of generalizations. We did discuss me last week, verbally communicating, but I think it kind of relates to what we're talking about tonight. So let's go down through here and get a couple of these. Joseph, you've been kind of our backup secondary person.
Yeah, I've been a poor substitute to John Butler. So
well, if you'd continue your poor substitution to this evening,
absolutely, no problem at all. No
so
problem
maybe
at all.
just let's start from 7 right here and just go down, read a couple of them. When you feel good about stopping, let's stop and discuss them as we go.
Okay, I'm sorry, where did you want me to start?
Right here at 7.
Okay. 7, me verbally communicating. 6, me gestured communication, human to humans, including smiles, clothing, perfumes, etc. Me gestured communication, humans to other creatures articulated.
Okay,
Me,
let's pause there.
sure.
Let's pause there.
The-
So today I was in the garden
right
with a
there.
friend. Yeah, and here's our communication going on right there with Susan. She gave us a perfect example. Gestured communications to other creatures. She did a physical gesture and an articulated gesture simultaneously. Very good, Susan. Perfect example of our topic at hand. I was in the garden today and at a neighbor's place, and a cat came along, and there I am talking to the cat. And I realized very conspicuously that I was making weird sounds, like as if I was talking to an infant. And there were other people in the garden. I became very self-aware. Anybody have any comments on these ideas about the part of me that verbally communicates, the part of me that makes gestured communications human to human, including clothing and
Yes,
perfumes?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's where, yeah.
I would say as a general comment, if you just take 7 and 6. 6 seemed to be, to me, an analogic communication. 7 is digital.
It might go the other way.
These days,
Say again, Susan?
I might actually flip that.
yeah.
Because it seems like there's so much more nuance and complexity to 6.
Yeah.
7 is verbal, is already a vector communicating in a certain way, digitally quantified. Because when I verbally communicate, I can already measure the tone, the direction, where I want the communication to go. Is leading, really. So you divide and you send it to someone.
Okay, now that's interesting because in Chinese is a tonal language, and it's very difficult to explain emotion in Chinese. I mean, they have ways to do it, but it's not like English or Spanish or other languages where I can raise the tone of my voice or do something to gesture my communication. In Chinese, Mandarin Chinese is very difficult because the way I tone my word makes the word, redefines the word. Like the word for mother and cow is the same thing, but it's a completely different word. But it's different because of the way that you pronounce, because of the tonal aspect of it.
Okay, and another comment on this general thing is that when you look at the principle from cosmic integrity down, it looks like nature at play, right? There's nothing I can do about it. Here, there is something me can do about. So the two are coming together.
Right.
You see what I'm trying to say?
So all of these are about nature in play.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can do about. At best,
systems, yeah.
When there is energy, I can deflect energy, like solar. I can install PVs to capture solar energy. That's what I can do at best, but I cannot invent energy. But
Yeah.
I can invent a smile.
Yeah.
I can invent a gesture. So
Yeah.
the whole play is like a tango that nature and the me's are playing for the dance, the harmonic dance. How will I say? I will also call it of nature.
So
Cool.
when
Go
we
ahead.
have these 7 and 6 against each other, I think back to the time we spent with Kiyosaki, and he was very big on talking about the idea that only 7% of communication was the word, that body language and tone were responsible for much more of the communication.
Yeah.
And yet if you've got something that's being verbally communicated, so I think of that as, if you and I are talking and you can see me, then so like, I'm sorry, I'm Italian, so you got some gestures coming. But if we're texting, if we, if somebody's doing just an email and it's really just the words and the tone is implied, I just think that there's such a even verbally communicating has so many different levels.
Comments, questions? Okay.
The only thing I'm thinking about, verbal communicating requires a set of standards, right? I mean, so that's, and so I guess I see that's one of the things that I see as digital. That's one of the reasons I see it as a digital form of communication. Just a comment.
I have trouble understanding the analog and the digital because back in the days of rock and roll, early recording, everything was analog. And then it went digital and everybody complained because the digital didn't have as much depth as the analog did. And nowadays the digital is compensating for that. And I think more and more they're coming together in ways that they haven't before. I mean, ultimately, when I get down to a bit, a quantum of information, I suppose that is digital at its very definition. But I get confused by it a little bit.
Do you remember what we discussed that on Wednesday, what the digit means? And Bucky talk about it. A digit is just a quantum, a division of a whole.
Yeah,
Even if I divide into two parts only,
those are 2 digits.
yes, if I say verbal and non-verbal, it's already digits.
Okay, good.
So the notion of digital and analog depend on the fineness of the calibration.
Yeah,
So I will progress. I mean, what we're talking about digital today compared to what was talked about digital in the age of electronics in the 70s is very, very different.
yeah. And now we're talking about digits in computers being the spin on an electron.
There we are.
That's the quantum now we're looking at with
Quantum computing.
with quantum computing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue. Any other comments, questions? Let's continue.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
I think we're at 3.
Yes, that's correct. Me, gestured communication sensed by me, non-human life to non-human life, trees to trees, birds to trees. Me, mute communication, biologicals to biologicals, thorns, odors, coloring. Me, mute, gross communication, stone to stone, stone to water, thermodynamics, electrolysis, crystallization, and erosion.
Comments or questions on those? I'm wondering why Bucky didn't put in here, I guess, biologicals, thorns, odors, coloring. Native Americans are big on the stone people. This says stone to stone and stone to water, thermodynamics, but science now is showing that trees have very sophisticated communication systems between themselves, plants and trees between themselves, some from their own biochemical interactions, but some through fungi and mycelium, and that the universe is a very complex structure of communication.
That's at 2, Steve. He says it at 2.
At 2, yeah, biologicals.
Yeah, biologicals to biologicals.
Yeah. But he doesn't say humans to rocks. And I think that it can be very enlightening to talk to rocks and talk to trees.
Listen, Bucky says there's nothing dead.
Yeah.
Right? Energy flows. Energy always flows. Crystallization, we say it's crystal and it's hard because we have not been able to measure. But in Bucky geometry, a crystal is also something that is just enabling the flow of energy, or by at very, very, very small, nano of nanos, right? But you can measure energy into that. And that's what it means, I think.
Right on. And it does come down to calibration, and it does come down to relevancy and irrelevancies. And so we've been talking intermittently about these circles of irrelevancies as we go here, and they do seem to apply. Any other comments or questions? Okay, at the end of this, Bucky starts creating these formulas because he takes these symbols over here that he's set up over these last few the weeks that we've been talking. There we go. And we talked about these symbols over here and creating down to where we finally end up with me. So from 25 to 18, he creates these symbols as he talks about these different hierarchy of comprehensively embracing and permeating generalizations of generalization. And then there are 18 me's, which we've just talked about. But then he comes back through at the very end of this thing and he puts it into a formula. And here is the formula. And I think that rather than, I'm going to show this one here because I think this is kind of interesting. Here's the formula. Cosmic integrity. Maybe, did anybody want to go through and translate this? I mean, I've been studying this for quite a while. What does the S stand for?
Synergy.
Synergy. N, what does it stand for?
Nature.
Sure.
Nature. Right. What does the O stand for?
Unknown.
Yes, everything unknown.
Unknown. Yes.
And what does the U stand for?
Universe.
Universe.
And then he leaves out some stuff. So he goes from 38, 37, 36, 35, 34, and then drops down to 25. He leaves out some stuff. I got a report I've done on the stuff he leaves out down here. It's on the next page. And then he continues with the formula. And he comes to this figure here, which is, maybe Joe, very slowly, if you want to read through and say the number and then give the definition above on each one of these, and let's say them slowly. Let's ponder these as we go, starting with 25.
That's going to be very challenging for me to see.
Okay, well, hang on. I can make it bigger.
Make the text larger. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, I was challenging your spectacles. No,
Yeah.
it was a
It
complete
was definitely an
oversight.
eye exam, I'll tell you that.
I apologize.
So start with humanity.
Yeah, I think so. And
Right.
just let's ponder each of these. Go ahead.
25, humanity.
Mm-hmm.
24, philosophy, ideologies, religions, associations, cults. 23, nations. 21, we. 20, you. 18 to 1, me.
Right on.
Okay.
Mhm.
And he left out 19. And he left out 22. Right. And any comments or questions on what we're seeing here? We've talked about this symbol being greater than, but we've also talked about this symbol being a symbol of permeating, comprehensively permeating and embracingness of everything. Any other comments or questions? What's left out over here?
Out of this
Out of this
hierarchy.
formula. Yeah, out of this formula.
Nothing is left out. No,
Well,
serious.
he doesn't
Nothing is
include
left out.
22.
No, but you are structurations in. But what it gives is that the sets, let's just put them together, that it gives, that's the way they relate. You
Okay.
could dig into something.
I have a question.
But
Go ahead.
really nothing is left out. Whatever you pick
That's interesting.
into that list of 35 to 1 is included in something here in this formula.
Okay.
If I pick, if you pick day is included in you in relationship to me.
The actual symbol isn't included. They is included in nations.
No, I'm just saying in terms of, yeah, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And others is included in philosophy, ideologies, religions, associations, and cults.
Exactly.
Others.
So he grouped them in a way that makes sense in what he was wanted to present.
That's interesting.
You started to ask something, Julian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that
Remember Kelly's formula. What was the symbol? What was the definition of a symbol in the formula?
Something that multiplies.
That holds, something that holds information. That's practically what it is. A symbol is something that holds information. So you have those symbols that hold information. And he put them in a way that we understand what information that it holds is.
Julian, what were you,
Yeah.
what point were you getting to? Let's get really clear about what your question is, because I think others have that question too.
Is that I was like, this is the first time I'm looking at this diagram, like this formula.
Yeah.
And from the first, I was thinking, okay, maybe what Bucky is doing, like, there's me, there's we, there's nations, there's philosophy, there's humanity, and all of that is like transversal to what I am part of. And in that way, he left others, like the 22 and 19, they out of that because it is not in like in top of me, you know. So that's why he's lefting that out. But then that was my first thing. But then I was looking into the you, and I was interested, like, maybe it's not in a vertical way, you know, that there's no there's no the vertical. And then another question arose and was like, why we is in the middle, why is we in the middle if we can talk about we as a nation, we can talk about we as a religion, we can talk as we as a humanity. So that also is like, maybe what I'm not saying, you know. Those are my two.
And I think you're making exactly the correct observations, and you're asking the exact correct questions. And I've been in these questions for the last 6 weeks.
Let me make a comment here, Steve.
Okay.
Okay, let's just imagine a dot. A dot, that is me.
The dot, okay.
Yeah, that is me in some place.
Mm-hmm.
When I say me, once I'm aware of a me, if there is anything else in my vicinity, I will say me and they, isn't it?
I might say others, me and others.
Or you.
Wait. Me and they. Let's just take it, accept it like that. That's my first division, my first duality, me and they.
Mm-hmm.
And then identify that there is Julio. And then I say, you. And then I see that there are stars, there are things, others that I don't know. And I say you and others. You and others. Anything that is not me, they that identify locally, you that identify wherever it is, anything else. It is enough to be a duality of a duality defining humanity. In a way that is intention, compression, you know, and playing synergistically. Me and you, or me first, primordially, and then something else. They, me, they, like me. You and others. It seemed to me just a nice construct that falls well into the way Bucky has been building the geometry.
And why do you associate they as you also?
Let's take a look at this, because I have definitions for they and others as a thing we could actually get into. And I've got, in fact, if you're not busy right now, go ahead and Google they and others and get the difference. But when we talked about these hierarchies before, we did one session on May 7th, that we have a great recording called Part 3. And we went down the list: humanity, philosophy, nations, others, we, you, and they, and me. And then we considered going back up the list. I mean, your comment, Julian, was that you could look at this vertically.
Mhm.
But I'm not so sure that vertical is the way to look at it, because if I look at it in reverse vertical, it really starts to make sense to me. And we could go from me to they, but I notice in the formula that Bucky goes me and you. Let's go. Let me see if there's anything else I
Yeah.
want to say here.
It
So
is always spherical, always.
it's always spherical. So
Yes.
consider the words inclusionary, permeating, and embracing. Consider the words vertical and reverse vertical. And then consider the idea of spherical, you know, and the double torus going in both freaking directions, right? So if we come down here to the end, oh wait, we were here. I took this formula, of course, and put it on this sheet of paper over here. If we build backwards, we go from me to you, and that seems to be the two dots. That here I have my dot me and you dot you, and bam, we are connected orthologically at right angles to each other. And we now have universe, we have otherness, we have awareness. Then you and I can look out and say, okay, here we are, what do we see? We can see they and we can see others. And if we see they, we see nations. If we see others, we see philosophies. What's the difference between other and they? What does other mean and what does they mean? And of course, this is debatable as well, you know, but here is a little chart that I put together that I'm happy to give to everybody, because I just examined this over and over again to see what was going on here. Others are those who are intrinsically different from oneself. Those who are alien to oneself, those are others. And they are those who are not intrinsically different from, and those who are not alien. So now, as we take a look at this formula of we're building here, they are the ones that are like us, and others are the ones that aren't. And usually philosophies and religions and cults, we have, you know, we say in our religion, well, we are cool and they, the others are not cool, right? They're different than us intrinsically. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about this. So I think, Julian, you're asking exactly the right questions, and I'm not convinced there's a perfectly correct answer. Because if you change, when I change the context, suddenly I'm seeing a different nuance. Does that make sense? But it seems to build vertically very nicely. When I decompose these symbols coming down to me, I get one idea, but when I recompose, starting from me and going from me to you, the two dots, and then we look around and we say, well, who else is there? You know,
But Steve,
we have they, that's nations, and then we have others, that's philosophies. Go ahead.
yes, let's come to the definition that you've given of others and they. You say others is other things that are different from me.
Right.
And you say they is other things that are not intrinsically different from me. That was the definition, that what I understood.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so in terms of awareness now, look, we are always progressing in awareness, that's evolution. So from the me, who do you think that I will be aware of something that is intrinsically different from me, or something that is intrinsically not different from me first? Which one?
Well,
Both.
go ahead, Susan. Are you talking?
I just said both.
Yeah. When
Anything that's outside of me is something I'm going to be aware of.
And it's other.
I wouldn't say both.
It's other because
let's just say my first awareness is sexual. So I'm aware of my female partner. That's the first thing. It cannot be, I mean, let's look at Maslow's hierarchy of things.
Of needs.
It can't be other way. You first aware of a male, female, for example. I'm not aware of a star before male, female. Zero.
I'm not understanding that.
Okay, let me explain it again. We're trying to understand the things here. I am saying, if I were a dot in the middle of an ocean, I'm on a rafter, right? And there exists, probably in my vicinity, I will not exist alone. I will exist with something that looks like me before I notice something that is not like me. Remember, we look for patterns. What is the first pattern that I see?
Other.
Or that I feel generally? Is a pattern like me?
Well, that's debatable, but I think it's a good point. As you look
Okay,
at, go ahead.
and then I've said that. I just want to put another point again.
Okay.
It's in the formula that I put in there.
Manu, when
Yes.
you're born, the last thing you think about is sex. First thing you think about is eating.
Yeah, my mother's boob.
My mother's boob.
But it's something that is not intrinsically different from you.
But it is.
But it is.
Without it,
No,
I
it's
don't
not
survive.
intrinsically different from you. No.
It's the beginning of otherness. Oh my gosh.
Yes. But your otherness is from your mom. Your mom is not intrinsically different from you. Your mom is in the day, not in the others.
Correct. That's why I said both.
Yeah.
No, but which one is first?
I think it takes us a while to understand that. I think just understanding not me
Yeah.
is the very first thing. Whether I understand, hey, they're not me, but they're very much like me, or hey, they're not me, but they're really different. Like my mom versus my pet dog.
Well, how about my mom or my pet dog versus my hand? How long does it take me to recognize that my hand is actually my freaking hand? I mean, I see it waving around all up there, right? And then one day I put it in my mouth and I connect it to it and say, whoa. And look, when I bite this, I feel this. So I start to get otherness, my hand, as part of me, maybe. Go ahead, Susan. I get excited about this part because
No, that's exactly where I was going. I don't remember exactly how long it takes kids to figure that out, but it's fun to watch.
yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at the experience here. In a family, are you really aware of the stars before your brother or your sister? This is just an experiment.
Yeah. Am I aware of the what before my brother, my sister?
The stars.
You know, I don't know. It's a great debate because I may
Because
be
the
more
star
aware of the
is
stars than I
nature
am
at
of anything
play.
else when I first get on this.
And
planet.
our awareness is the reflection of nature at play onto us. We've seen that all the time. That awareness is always a derivative.
Okay.
But
I have
it's always, awareness is with a lag, always with a lag.
I have a great little chart that I put up together here that I think is really fun. I won't go through it tonight, but I've been playing games like how do we come to these symbols, right? And
I'm
trying
the
to-
only one, but I'm seeing a blank screen there.
yeah, well, I got to change
But
it.
see, before you go there, I wanted to make a second comment.
So I'll pass this out and you guys can do this on your own if you're interested. I'll put it in the send out for the thing. Go ahead.
Okay,
Mike,
I've just written something here. Don't look at it complicatedly, in a way that is complicated. The formula that I say that we've been talking about electromagnetic, right?
Okay.
The two are permeating.
Mhm.
Okay, they are permeating each other, playing, to make the electromagnetic. But you have electric and magnetic effect. And the relationship in terms of amplitude between the two is that the electromagnetic square equal magnetic square plus electric square, right? Do we agree to that? The two come always at 90 degrees.
Yes, that part I got.
And the resultant of them is the hypotenuse. And the relationship between hypotenuse and the and the side is that relationship of a triangle. That is a principle that we cannot dispute.
Well, triangle in 2 dimensions, but it could also be a torus. It could be a sphere. I mean,
But it doesn't change. It can be a tensorial thing, Steve.
here's your 90 degrees that you're talking about between electromagnetic
Yes.
magnetic energy and electromagnetic, but it's actually a torus. These are actually
Yeah, but the
spheres.
torus, understand what the torus is in mathematics. You represent a torus or whatever complex form in terms of matrices. That is several column, a table of column and rows. That's the way you present it. Any multivariable. And that doesn't, the relationship still stand. In that if you take the field, the electromagnetic field square, it equals the electric field square plus the magnetic field square. That is a formula. Everybody works with that. All what I wanted to say here is that in terms of magnitude, we see the interpenetrating of the two, but the magnitude of electromagnetic is more than either of electrical or the magnetic.
Yes.
To respond to some of Steve's comments, in that there are what word did Bucky use?
Embracing and permeate.
Yes, that is to clarify the embracing and permeating.
Cool.
Okay.
Comments and questions? Okay, we do have time, and I would like to tackle this because it'd be so fitting. I found in Synergetics 508 a definition of generalization of generalizations. And I think that discussing this generalization of generalizations would be really great finale to this whole 18 me's and the other items here. So Joe, if you're there,
I am.
let's read this. Go for it.
508.01 numbers are experiences. You have one experience and another experience, which, when reviewed, are composited. Numbers have unique experiential meaning. The minimum structural systems of universe, the tetrahedron of the thinkable set,
And
the thinkable set, thank you. Both consistent of 4 points of their 6 unique interrelatedness. Even the development of sets derives from experience. Mathematics is generalization, a third degree of generalization. That is a generalization of generalizations.
good job.
Yeah, that's it. But generalization itself is a sequitur to experience, which intuition and mind discover the synergetic inner behavior that is not implicit in any single item of the empirical of data of the past.
Wonderful. So when I looked at that, I noticed he's saying a couple of things like he always does, and I decided to break this into 4 sets of data. I decided that the minimum structural systems of the universe, the tetrahedron and the thinkable set, both consist of 4 points with their 6 unique interrelatednesses. To me, that's a unique idea that he interjects between this idea of numbers are experiences and sets are derived from experience. And then he finally gets to his generalization of generalizations when he says mathematics is generalization, a third degree generalization that is a generalization of generalizations. So but generalization itself is sequitur to experience. So let's take this out one step at a time.
But Steve,
yes,
please, just before that, there's something important. If you just go back to the text, before mathematics, even the development. Even the development of sets derives from experience.
Right on.
That is extremely important to me.
Yeah, we're going to put that together in just a second. So Joe, go ahead and read his first sentence then is right here. You want to read that?
1A?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Numbers are experiences. You have one experience and another experience, which, when reviewed, are composited. Numbers have unique experimental meaning.
Good. Those
Stop
concepts
there. What does it
are
mean?
easy to understand. Yeah, what does it mean?
Numbers are patterns. Numbers lag. Yes.
Yeah.
Numbers are lagging calibrators.
Okay.
Energy flows first. You experience that energy. And then you can calibrate it into a number.
Cool.
In other words, first experience, I put my finger in water, I feel something. When it repeats, I put my finger again, I feel something that is hotter, that is more hostile to me. I say, there is something that I call temperature. And that temperature is calibrated from this to this in comparison to always what I first experienced.
Right, based on experience. And I think you're right about the fact that even the development of sets are derives from experience, that numbers derive from experience and sets derive from experience. He interjects this thing about structural systems of tetrahedron and thinkable sets. We've talked about this before, and I built this little chart out in our previous discussions that are kind of interesting because this shows the convex, the concave. It shows the part that's hidden and the part that's not, the way Bucky calibrates the fourness and the 6 interrelationships. And we can come back to that if we want to, but this is basically the minimum structural systems of the universe, the tetrahedron and the thinkable set. A thinkable set. Both exist as 4 points and 6 interrelationships. The thing I want to get to here is that numbers are experiences. You have one experience and another experience, which when reviewed are compositive. So therefore numbers are unique, have unique experiential meaning. And even the development of sets derives from experience. So numbers can be composite experience and sets can be composite experiences.
Do you know what composited means? The word. Practically, what does it mean? And we've been talking about that all the time.
Okay, go ahead.
It's pattern. Another definition for pattern is the composite.
Yeah, that's what the AB, that's what this whole thing here is. There's a pattern that if you look at the interrelationships, the 6 interrelationships, they become a pattern.
Yes, you have divided that into 2 that together form a pattern.
I did, because when you take these elements, when you take the elements A, B, C, and D, and when you start combine them, you put them into a little chart, and then you go A to B, A to C, A to D, and then you go B to A, B to C, B to D. That's exactly what we did here. And as he goes down, he identifies this half of the relationship, but this half he doesn't. And yet every one of these are duals.
Yes.
A has a relationship with B, but B also has a relationship with A. And I think
that's called reflexivity, Steve.
Is what?
Reflexivity.
Yeah, it also works in business.
Yes.
Because a lot of times I'm the boss and I think I have a relationship, I'm A, and I have a relationship with B. But I don't stop to think about what kind of relationship B has with me. You know, that's the dark side of the force. That's the convex part of this concave double tetrahedron over here. You know?
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that is first important is the fourness.
Well, yeah.
Is the fourness. Yes. Because what is flowing, what is relating is energy, right?
Sure.
Is what energy relating from one receptacle to another receptacle. And those receptacles, in order to contain energy, you need 4 vertices.
Because that's the minimum structural system.
Yes, that's what he calls structure.
Yeah.
And by showing the concave and convex, you've made a set.
Yes.
Yes.
So in other words, if I don't know something, if I wanted to define something that I don't know, but I see 2 pebbles on the river, I take them, I put them together, I join them. Then I can see that, you know, when I join them like this, you know, they are touching, or there's 4 points that define that thing that is locked between the two. You get what I'm trying to say?
Comments, questions? So I broke out number 3 here because I thought it was really important, because that's where he talks about the definition of generalization of generalizations.
Steve, I wanted to make a comment about the experience, because at the first sight of it, I wasn't able to understand that until Manu was explaining, okay, if you have temperature, then you have like that first experience, then you have another temperature, and that's another experience. So you will be able to compare those. And I was thinking, like, hell yeah, like you can see 2 numbers and you can see which one is bigger than the other, like almost in like in any situation, right? But I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's something that I'm not seeing, because is always a number tied to an experience? Because if I put a number and I compare that to a bigger number without having to say that is temperature, that is money, that is length or any other thing, then I'm talking about pure mathematics then,
He actually
and that is a
addressed
different experience then, or
in this
Yeah.
section, he actually talks about mathematics and the difference between the a priori and in the section 805 or 508 here. He actually talks about it.
Okay.
So that would be a natural conversation. What I'd like to focus on here, and if we have time, we'll go to that, what mathematics is. But I think the point is here is that a number must be experienced. A number is an experience.
Yeah, so Julian, what I get from what you're saying is something that's been, I think, kind of at that heart of analog versus digital. And we talked before at different times in our conversation about this moment and why Claude Shannon was such an amazing force. Whenever we perceive something, we've collapsed one dimension to make a derivative to bring that perception inside of our awareness. And every time that we collapse a dimension, we're making a division, we're doing a calibration. So one of the things that really caught my imagination was the latest biography of Da Vinci. And he actually had in his mind, as he would try and teach apprentices, that each finer and finer divisions helped you come to a closer and closer approximation of the actual thing. So he didn't put numbers to it. He was literally doing it geometrically, doing it visually, but it's that same process. But when Newton came along, he put numbers in it and we called it calculus. And Claude Shannon said, hey, you can take this life experience and you can make it digits. And here we are, each in different countries. And the only thing that's transmitting our voice, our tone, our visuals are a series of zeros and ones. Our image, our experience has been digitized. And so when we kind of have that kind of romantic talk about analog, which I think of as this richer but slower sort of thing, and I think of digital as something very fast and derived and extracted. But once you make that derivative, then the machine can go and play with it. When we talk about more of an analog experience, there would have to be some translation to get it into a digital. That's where my brain is going with it.
Let me make a bold comment here. Are you ready? Please don't bury me. That's a forewarning. There is no such thing as numbers other than 2 digits. There is always something happening in this universe. And it's always, do I see it or don't I see it? Do I sense it or don't I sense it? But the thing is always there. So in relation to the me apprehending, there's only 2 states. I see, I don't see. I think, I don't think, right? And I call that 0 and 1 or whatever. Anything else is a symbol that is subsequent and a construct to contain more and more of those I see, I don't see. And even from the experimental, you know that Bucky didn't believe that prime numbers exist. From experiential point of view, his was always that you experience, there's always the duality. You experience, and in the return of information, there is something that is left that will build into something anew that you haven't seen repeating. Therefore, this thing is so rare in our comprehension that you say that 3 is the prime number. Because you say 3 is only divisible by himself. But for it to be divisible by himself, there got to be a dual that exists. When you say something is divisible by itself, something cannot be by itself unless it's a primordial one. But we know that we are in the primordial one, and everything that we see is divisions. And we're trying to bring them together to significance by associating. So by the fact of saying a prime number is a number that is only divisible by itself, you imply that there is a dual that you don't see. Okay, that's my attack. You can bury me now, no problem.
Well, I like that. That's really, that's psychedelic. And I agree with you. I can't prove it, but I agree with you. Any other comments or questions?
And thank you, Manny and Susan, because it was really good explanation. Thank you for that.
I'm not sure mine was an explanation. It's just my internal experience.
True. It's more
Well,
like,
and I think that's the point of Bucky's conversation here. A generalization is based on experience. That's exactly what we were reading in as we were reading over here. A generalization is based on experience. And Joe, I just sent you an email in case my computer crashes with all of these documents on them, so you can grab the documents and just hack through them in the case I crash. But that's what he says right here. He says mathematics is generalization. In the first part, he talks about how numbers are experience. Numbers are experiences. And sets are derived from experience, right? And then he says here, mathematics is generalization, a third degree generalization, that is generalization of generalizations. Now, what constitutes a second degree? I have no idea. I imagine that a first degree is the actual experience. But then he points out here, generalization itself is sequitur to experience. And so I had to look up the word sequitur.
Well, you understand that when you talk about the third degree of generalization, that's the 4 points.
That's the 4 points of the tetrahedron?
Yeah. The first is the first division, the first duality. A tetrahedron is the duality of duality. The duality of duality. So the first is first, the me. I'm aware of me. That is the first degree of generalization.
Right.
The second is you.
I agree with that.
And then they and others is the third. So with that, you can build humanity.
Okay, and so it just points
So
out.
remember that in order to see something, you always have to collapse one dimension. We discussed that many, many times. If you have a tetrahedron, to see inside the tetrahedron, you can only see in 3 dimensions, though the tetrahedron is a 4 dimension. You have to collapse 1 dimension always. We discussed that. That's why we have a Euclidean geometry of 3 dimension, X, Y, Z. But we know that the experience is 4 dimension.
I actually agree with everything Manu is saying, and it would take me an hour to explain why I agree with that, because it's right on several fronts. The brain maps everything in 2D. And in order to see things, I have to collapse them down. That's one way to look at it. The way I create an awareness of 3 dimensions is I look at a bunch of 2D maps that have different focuses on them.
And you can posit them.
What's that?
You can posit them and you create a set.
Exactly correct. I composite 2D maps to create a 3D set.
But do you understand that that is synergy at play?
That is synergy at play.
Yes.
Sure.
The whole is more than the part.
Yeah.
The sum of a part. Now, we can only understand by putting the sum of a part. And we generalize the whole. So, in order for you to understand, to comprehend and generalize and induct, you needed to be in a 3-dimensional space in order to understand what is in 4 dimensions.
Okay.
Via a symbol. When you do a symbol, you're collapsing the dimension. You are restraining the motion, the flow. You are restraining entropy. That's how you build symbols. A symbol is meant, as Kelly said, to hold information,
A
to hold
tetrahedron
energy.
is a symbol. A tetrahedron is a symbol.
Yes. And a tetrahedron is the minimum that holds energy.
Yeah.
You can't go further. If you divide a tetrahedron, either you find another tetrahedron or you find something that is no more the tetrahedron. We've done that division before.
Yeah.
So for us to understand, we always need to collapse. And that's the why it is said that every phenomena that we see, most of the phenomena that we explain, they only need 2 derivations. Remember that, Susan?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why you need the first thing, then you have the first derivation, and you have the second. That's what Bucky does to describe the universe between a tetrahedra, and an octahedron. He first divides. If you take the tetrahedron and you take the edges and you divide into 2 each edges and you join them together, you have the implied octahedron inside. If you take that octahedron and you divide it into 3 planes, you have the 12 degrees of freedom, 4 times 3. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
The first 4, hello?
Well, let's finish her up because I want to come back to this before the evening's over.
So that's what I want to say, that most experiences in physics, in real term, outside of conceptual mathematics, it is to the 2nd degree of derivation. If you look at most of physics, they don't go past the 2nd degree of derivation. They don't go.
Okay. It said mathematics is a third degree generalization.
Yeah,
So-
I'm just trying to explain the word, what you call the third, mathematics, the third degree. As what you call experiential mathematics is a third degree of derivation.
Right.
It's only third degree. You have the
And-
prime, you have the first and the second degree.
And that's the key point of this paragraph right here, is that generalization itself is sequitur to experience, which means it's equal to, I looked up sequitur, the conclusion of an inference, a consequence. So therefore a generalization is the consequence to experience.
Yeah.
Generalization is inferred by experience. Generalization is relevant to experience. So when Bucky sets up this hierarchy of generalizations of generalizations, he's talking about experience. And he separates that from intuition and mind.
Oh.
It says right here, but generalization itself is sequitur to experience, where intuition and mind discover the synergetic inner behavior that is not implicit in any single item of the empirical data set.
Beautiful. He said the structure can be done to a third degree. But in order to know the whole, that is how it functions inside, you need intuition, you need the mind. Only the mind relates.
And in 508.02, he gives just, it's one simple sentence. Intuition and mind apprehend that which is comprehensively between and not of the parts.
Yes.
So generalizations of generalizations are the parts that can be experienced. But in order, as human beings, in order to see the universe the way that it really is, we need to bring intuition and mind together with experience. Experience counts the sets and collapses in order to have the experience, and intuition and mind examines the space between our comprehensively our comprehensive generalizations. That's what
Yes.
I'm getting out of this.
Yes. And as an example, our own earth, that's what we saw. When we observe, we saw planets, we saw satellites, we observed them. That's the structure. But to imagine how they interrelate, how they hold together in a perpetual dance, you needed a mind.
So
There's no way I could have flown from Earth to the center of the sun to experience the sun.
So let's look at what Manu is saying here. I can have an experience of cosmic integrity, and I can go down this list. I can have an experience of astrophysics. I can have an experience of solar system, of Earth, of biologicals, but without mind and intuition to connect the dots, I'm not going to comprehend anything.
Mm. Mind, actually, but not to connect, to see what is in what
between,
is concealed.
What is between the things that I'm seeing.
Yes.
That's the actual words that he uses here.
Yes.
Intuition and mind apprehend that which is comprehensively between and not of the parts.
Yes.
So what we're seeing in this chart is the parts. As we go down through here, we're seeing parts and combinations of parts.
It's a fundamental duality at play, Steve.
You betcha. And these
Yes.
are comprehensive.
Duality means there are phases. There is a phase that I see, another phase that I don't see.
Exactly.
There is a form, a structure that I see, but I don't see what is in and between the structure that hold it together.
Yeah.
Without it, there wouldn't be a structure. The two are together. And without a structure, there wouldn't be that one. They are always at play.
Yeah, that's why I like my little chart of the cosmography dots. I forget where they were. I think they're up here. Because I see the dots, but it takes intuition to see the space between. It takes intuition and mind to see the interrelationships. The dots can be experienced as generalizations. Generalizations are experience. And then intuition and mind is what allows me to apprehend that which is between that which I see, my experiences. Whew. Does anybody else have any other take on this or any other comments or questions? So,
in other words, Steve, if you come back to that, you see where you have the diagram of relationship.
okay, the cosmography diagram.
No, the one that you just showed that, where you have the line A, B, C, D.
Oh, yeah, that's cosmography. That's the cosmography dots. They're
Yeah.
right, yeah. They're right here.
Yeah. Just go up. Yes. Yes, that one. Do you understand that A, B, C, D is the same as a tetrahedron?
It is a tetrahedron. It's also.
It is a representation, yes. It
It's
takes your mind to see that.
It's a thinkable set. It's a thinkable set. It's a tetrahedron.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that ABCD, that relationship that you have there on a 2D, that way is the same as the 3D tetrahedron that we see. It's just a representation. And that is mind at play. If you were just from the experience, we will see two different things.
Yeah.
We see ABCD as it is, and we will see a tetrahedron in the structure.
That's right.
But it takes the mind to show us that it's just a different way of seeing the same thing.
To experience or have a sense of the interrelationships of the four dots that we're actually experiencing.
Yeah. In other words, your experience you can only experience a phase of something. You can't experience the whole thing. Every experience that you record is a phase of something happening. We see the new moon. We see the day. We see the sun in. It's a phase of the sun. It is not the sun wholly. So we need to see the sun in many of its phases to be able to infer what the sun does as a star.
Cool. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Time to wrap.
It's what?
Might be time to wrap it up.
It is time to wrap it up. That's what I'm
Let me
waiting for. Any
just
comments or
make
questions?
a last comment. It's just give me 1 second. Again, I say it. Nature is at play. There's nothing I can do with nature. Me aware of the me, mimic nature and play and do constructs that are anti-entropic to what I perceive as the entropy of nature. And then I do it in a way of containing, of symbolizing, of containing a pattern for as much as I can. And I hopefully containing that pattern in a way that it is regenerative for a while. That is my general comment.
Cool. Any other comments or questions? All right, great. Susan, how you feeling and what's your takeaway from, we're done with this topic. We're done with cosmic hierarchies. What's your takeaway? How you feeling? What's your takeaway?
I'm feeling good. I kept my focus. I love being in between. And I think if I was to guess, probably everybody on this call is an in-between person. And thank you for 508.02, because that's something I will keep and hold on to as one of my favorite sentences from Bucky. I I love the word apprehension. And I think it tickles me so much when I have an understanding of a word that's completely different than the general feeling sense of the rest of the population. And I find that with, emergency, because almost everybody has that bad connotation and it's going to be terrible. And yet to me, it's that beautiful act of emerging. And I think I used to think of conspiracy as this ugly word that's been tainted with a paintbrush by authority. And now I think of it as the Latin for those of us that breathe together. And apprehension can mean, anxiety and badness or capturing a criminal. But yet here, Bucky lets us have it as a moment to take our mind into the relationships and interrelationships where mind builds something out of experience and allows us to be, as Manu said, that anti-entropic local force. And so if we're smart, if we take that moment to see the deeper patterns and structures, possibly we can get to a moment where our application of that understanding could be regenerative. It could mimic nature and be regenerative. Certainly we're having a lot of type 2 evolution on the way to some type 1 evolution, I hope. Roffers, I haven't heard anything from you, but I've been dying to hear what you're thinking. How do you feel and what are you taking away?
Microphone.
No, terrific, great. I think it's good to be back and then start catching up with everything we have been studying over the last few weeks. I think what is critical, I think, is this distinction about what we're able to identify with our brain, and that is elements that we can store. And then as we retrieve and relate or interrelate all those elements that are stored in our brains, that's the betweenness. So that's the work of the mind. So that's a different way to look at how the mind operates and how actually there's all this hierarchy of, synergy, universe, nature, etc. And all that we do is identify parts, and then that's also numbers effectively. But as we relate the numbers, there's something else happens. And again, I can see lots of applications for that. And the importance of understanding the betweenness and how, not just as we see each other as betweeners, we're all betweeners, that's what we do. Because that's what the mind does, is identify separate items, and then there's no work of the mind within each of the items without the items relate. And how the items not just relate between two, but in terms of four, a minimum of four, to actually create a thought. So again, that was interesting. So I really enjoyed the call. Even though I must admit I always get a bit lost with the mathematics and the geometry, because that's something I never studied at school. But still, at least I can get the gist and see what I can apply. So grateful for that. So how about you, Joe? How do you feel and what's your takeaway?
Feeling grateful. Steve, I can't thank you enough for all the work that you put into this. It really is remarkable. I mean, I'm just looking at the emails and looking at the documents themselves, and so I'm very, very appreciative of that. The thing that actually really helped me this evening was the tetrahedron and the thinkable set. Going over that and the hierarchy within the cosmography example that we gave, where we had the duality of concave and convex, and how we had AB, I'm looking at BA, and how sometimes we don't necessarily see those relationships, and the relationship between that and our mind, our intuition in our mind, and our experiences. So I'm able to put those two together because of that visual graphic. And I think about how that can be applied every single day is that sometimes the importance of following intuition as opposed to just following just what our past experiences are telling us. And that's important to me. So, I mean, I learned a lot. There's a lot to go back over with this particular topic. But I'm very grateful, Steve, that you've made it so consumable, and actually, again, breaking the paragraphs out the way you did, that actually makes this a much more digestible for me personally, and I'm grateful for that. So Julian, welcome back. And how do you feel, and what are you taking away from today?
Thank you, Joe, for that. I really feel you were taking me, like all of you were taking me a good welcome, having also more patience to explain me some stuff that you have already been able to work before. And what I take from this is that so many of these things is because we're able to see through patterns, and it seems like we can be in different places, from different cultures, from different countries, and we can still see patterns in common. And the way that Steve was able to, as Joe was saying, like to help us digest all of that, making that graphical, like enclosing those red squares, like all of that is really helpful. And being able to see that everything it's like composite, and how is that we can start getting agreements into some of this stuff, like even with intuition, you know, and so many learnings that you have been sharing, like along the way. Like I'm sure that if we keep repeating all of these, like we will be finding more and more stuff inside this. So I really feel like thankful for doing this, and being able to realize that this duality is intrinsic to so many things. And thinking of numbers, I really think, or wanted to thank also Manu, because thinking of numbers as 0 and 1, as there's what you see or what you not, God, yeah, it is like really insightful. And you know, all of the ways that we're trying to make sense of all of this, it also help us understand better each other, because we are able to communicate, as we were talking at the beginning. We are able to communicate even if this is a collapse and this is digital and all that. Like still we are able to make the most out of that. And you know, it's amazing. It's amazing to be able to see all of these different perspectives. So with that, I will take from today. Manu, what how do you feel, and what do you take away?
I feel good. Really, Steve, thank you for landing this thing, you know, in a way that without a crash. There is, to me, two things in here. Nature is always at play. there's nothing I can do about it. And I'm in the business of increasing my awareness, playing the game of life. And it looks to me that in that game, experience, repeat, calibration, correction, and repeat again is very, very important. The second thing that is that me, vis-a-vis that, I have to, first, nature is very disciplined because it delivers on its premises. Synergy is always at play. So for me to be able to even mimic and try to do something locally like that, I really, is important that I be disciplined, but most that I've been self-disciplined, meaning that a set of things that I do repetitively, like my mantra, like something that I do every day, that take me from this place to some other place. And that in doing that, I'll call it structuroid. I wouldn't say my structure is anti-entropy. The flow of energy is in, out, and in between. And life is actually the dance of the two, of that structure that we build, say humanity or whatever, and or our kind of vision of humanity, and the relationship and the flow of energy that we don't see, but that is occurring completely. And how do we dance with that? And that dancing, what we call regenerative, is to do that dance over and over again. And it takes increased awareness of what the general principles are, and how will I call it, an expansion of our mind into generalizing our experience. And that's where I stop here. Otherwise, I'm really grateful and to this group and to all those who kind of give them time, their time into making it what it is. So with this, Kelly, how do you feel? What do you take away?
I feel like today I've listened very intently, and I really don't understand what the complication of it is. It is really very simple. It's in, out, between, and around.
Yes.
It's like I'm into something, I'm out of something, I'm between something, and I'm around something. And then the thing that seems to be most needed in when reading this is agreement. Do I agree? Because each individual has a right to agree or not to agree. Or in their betweenness, if they don't agree, the lesson's not there. So when I listen to this, I mean, I'm finding it hard to keep up, to be completely honest. But the thing that I come back down to is the need for agreements, the need to agree amongst parties. Because what he's saying in this really is very simple. When you break it down into he's broken it down into all the steps, and you can see the steps, and you can say they're lesser than or greater than, or whatever Steve wants to say about it. But to me, it's just breaking it off into a framework that one could think about and be really aware of what it is that they're thinking about. And I mean, I'm just a steak and potato guy. I look out into my backyard, I see my mango tree growing, that's great. If it's not growing, that's not great. You know, I don't know. I'm really found tonight very hard to stay with. So that's how I feel. That's what I'm taking away. Steve, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Well,
And by the way, thank you, Steve, for all your hard work.
well, thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm excited that this is over. And I love the way Bucky has broken down the parts and invited me to think differently about the way I perceive the universe. I mean, whoever thought there were 18 me's? And I'm looking at a quote from Bucky.
Only 18 me's. Only 18 me's. That's what there's only 18 me's.
That's right. Well, see, you're lucky because that blows me away. That's 17 more than I've been used to looking at. And, you know, he says that human beings, men have, or human beings, he said man, but he means human beings, have this inferiority complex. And until we give up all of our games, all the old delete games, obsolete games, we start really getting with what's happening. And our next topic, by the way, is going to be more generic and more on purpose in terms of how each of us can play in our lives, and not so scientific or formulaic or mathematical or whatever this has been. So I've just been delighted. It's helped me, I think, in very small little bits. And this has helped me break things down smaller than I would like to have done it. And then to build it back again. I'm really grateful that Julian and Raffer speak English, because if I had to do this in Spanish, it would not freaking happen. It just,
That's for sure.
there'd be no freaking way this would happen. And for you guys to plug in here and keep rolling every week, Julian, your questions are really good questions, right? And so I'm just grateful for Raffers and Julian and for the fact that we're doing this in English. The thing that when I break this all down in these little parts like this, what comes up is how mind and intuition connect the dots, and the dots that I experience, like I experience you and me, right? Well, if I'm running a company and I'm the boss and I have employee B, C, and D, I usually think in terms of A to B, A to C, A to D. But you know, if I really get intuitive about it, I start being concerned about how does B hold me? Do they just tell me yes, or do we really have a relationship? How does C hold me? How does D hold me? And then how is B and C interrelating? Does B think C is cool? And does C hate B? You know, I mean, if I have 4 people working together, I have 6 different interrelationships that I need to contend with. And I love the invitation that Bucky gives to be able to use mind and intellect and perceive the things that I'm not normally experiencing, and most people don't freaking experience it. You know, the Buddha talked about enlightenment is seeing reality the way that it really is. And I think that Bucky tries to show us in a way how reality really is. And the other thing that really impressed me is that you and me are the foundation. If you look at that symbol of humanity, it's you and me. We're the foundation. And then we've got others and we've got they. And it blows me away at how I see how philosophy and religion is close to cult. It's the same symbol. Cult, philosophy, and religion. And I guess the question is, how far out do I put the others? How far out am I going to do that? And that's the difference between they and others. So this whole thing has invited me to look at the interrelationships and use my intuition and use my mind to see the interrelationships that I otherwise wouldn't see. And I'm really grateful, although I've got 4 really cool multi-page reports here that I'm going to attach to this stuff. This has been really great for me, because my quest is understanding consciousness. And this has really helped me get what consciousness is about. What's the difference between experience and intuition, and how important is the space between. because I don't usually look at betweenness. So that's really good. Okay, that's where I took, and I'm complete for now. And I sure appreciate each one of you in your sharing. Even in your silence, you know. So see you next
Steve,
week.
please send me that definition of others and they that you
Okay,
displayed.
I'll
Can
send
you-
it out. I'll send it out to all 6 of us right now that have
Yeah.
been here. And then
Mhm.
I'll put it with the stuff to everybody who probably won't look at it, but I'll send it out right away to each of us that are on this call. Julian, you're going to get it.
Excellent.
Raffers, you're going to get it too. Okay, so if you want to look at it, you'll get it in the next 10 minutes. Okay, guys?
All right, thank you. And
See
thank
you
you for
next
your
time
good
around.
comments.
Thank you,
Stephen.
Steve.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Cheers.
you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.